Today we get to reflect on a powerful message that Mark gives us about Jesus healing a blind man named Bartimaeus. And from the story of Bartimaeus, we learn about faith and discipleship and what it means to follow Jesus. We're in Mark chapter 10, and we're going to start at verse 46. And they came to Jericho, and as he was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a great crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind beggar, the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." And they called the blind man, saying, "Take heart, get up, he's calling you." And throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" And the blind man said to him, "Rabbi, let me recover my sight." And Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." And immediately he recovered his sight and followed Jesus. People want a political savior. And Jesus says, that's not what I'm about. I don't care about human politics. I don't care about power on earth. My mission is not about ruling the world. My mission is to deal with your spiritual state. Where's your heart? That's what Jesus' mission is. So Bartimaeus sets the scene, and in his blindness has faith to understand who Jesus is. That's our first point today, that faith is the foundation of our relationship with Jesus. And that's what Bartimaeus shows us. Faith is the ultimate foundation, and that's something not even his disciples could understand. If you remember from last week, we talked about James and John just a few verses back. Verse 35, James and John, the son of Zebedee, came up to him and said, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." And this is what Jesus answers them. "What do you want me to do for you?" They say, "Hey, Jesus, help us out. Brother man, help us out." Jesus says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Then they ask for power. And Jesus says, "You don't know what you're talking about."
He chose poorly.
We get to Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus approaches Jesus, and what does Jesus ask? Verse 51, "What do you want me to do for you?" It's the exact same thing. Jesus asks James and John, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they ask a poor question. Bartimaeus comes up, Jesus says the exact same thing. "What do you want me to do for you?" But Bartimaeus nails it.
You have chosen wisely.
They asked the wrong dadgum question. They asked for power and prestige. Bartimaeus asks for a touch from Jesus. That's the huge difference. Faith is the foundation, the beginning point of our relationship with Jesus. James and John thought that Jesus could provide something in the world that they wanted. Bartimaeus saw Jesus through the eyes of faith. The second thing I think that we can learn from the story of Bartimaeus is about discipleship and following Jesus in our daily lives. You see, when Jesus had this encounter with Bartimaeus, Jesus told him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." Jesus had no calling on this man to come with him. He's like, "Hey, I'm sending you away. Your request, I'm giving you what you have asked for because of your faith. Your faith is what has triggered this." Just like we saw the woman who touched him chapters ago. Her faith that Jesus could do something that no one else can do. So Jesus tells Bartimaeus, "Hey, your faith has made you well. Go about your way." But what does Bartimaeus do? He's like, I'm following. Where you go, now I go. Check your heart and your heart's priorities. Are you holding on to something that is already dead and gone? Or are you willing to let go of that to follow Jesus? Bartimaeus casts aside his cloak. Everything that he had in the world, just chucks it. Says, Jesus is my priority. Getting to Jesus and then following him, that is what discipleship is really all about. In Luke chapter 9, Jesus says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. And then in John chapter 8, Jesus says, if you hold on to my teaching, you really are my disciples. See, following Jesus isn't just about that one-time encounter. God's done something in my life. Oh, cool. Thanks, God. Now I'm going to go back to my old way of doing things. Following Jesus says, God has touched my life, and now from here on out, I'm in. I'm committed. There's no turning back. And the third and final point that we get from the story of Bartimaeus is this, that following Jesus is really about transformation and obedience. You see, Bartimaeus received his sight and then didn't stop there. He pushed on. The transformation wasn't just about that one occurrence, but now it's about his new way of life. Following Jesus really is that transformation and obedience. In Romans chapter 12, St. Paul says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You see, following Jesus is not just a one-time decision, it's a continual daily journey of obedience, of transformation. Bartimaeus just didn't receive his sight and stop, but boom, he says, nope, let's go. I'm in. I'm here for the long haul. I'm going to follow you. I pray that we can have that same kind of mentality, where we will let nothing hold us back from getting to Jesus. Whatever is holding you back in your life, whatever is weighing you down, we dedicate ourselves to throwing it aside. We're just going to pitch it off. Say, no, nothing is going to stop me from getting to Jesus. And then we follow him daily, letting him transform our lives.